Hey guys, so I was searching through YouTube trying to find videos of kind of people giving their accounts of what it's like to work for a newspaper. And aside from finding a couple of videos about what it's like to be a carrier or a person that delivers the newspapers, I couldn't really find anything, so I thought that I would make this video. So here's my take on what it's like to work for a newspaper. So when I was in high school, one of my friends was joining the journalism staff our junior year, and she asked me, she was like, hey, you should come, do this with me. So I did. I didn't really have any desire to, but I ended up really enjoying it in high school, and was the kind of like the opinion editorial person for our school newspaper alongside my best friend. So we did that our junior year, and then senior year they passed editor-in-chief on to me. So that next year I decided to redesign the paper. I would write columns. I had a couple of columns published in the newspaper that I eventually went to work at, and it was super fun. It was really fun to be able to get that really creative, to get those creative juices flowing, to come up with different ways to market our school newspaper and all that kind of stuff, and it ended up being really successful. Unfortunately, I don't know how the paper has gone since I left. So then I went to college and decided that I graduated with a criminal justice degree, a bachelor in criminal justice. And like a lot of college graduates, after I graduated, I decided to try to get my first full-time job. And for months, I applied and applied and applied, and nothing. I kept getting doors slammed in my face. And I was working part-time at a bank, and finally one of my coworkers said, hey, there is an opening at the newspaper. So I thought, cool, maybe I'll try it. So I don't have a mass communication degree. I don't have any kind of a journalism degree. I did not even minor in anything in journalism. Didn't work for the college newspaper, nothing like that. But I did have clips of my old papers from high school. We had to keep clippings of every paper, and I just kept copies of the paper itself from the entire time I was there, and we did that for a grade at the end of the year. And I'm really glad that I did that. So I kept all of those, and when I went to interview, I basically just begged for the job. I said, look, I've done YouTube for 4 years. I have a blog. Here's my newspaper clippings. I really need a full-time job with benefits. Please just consider me, please. And my boss at the time, he decided to take a chance on me. And so I started out as the general assignment and feature reporter. So I was responsible for, I guess, more clerk duties. So I would put together the obituaries. I would do what we call society news, which would be like weddings and anniversary announcements, engagement announcements. I would cover civic club meetings and those feature stories that you can take quite a bit of time to really gather and create a really amazing story. And while I was doing that, it was the absolute best time. I knew nothing when I got there about AP style. That was nothing that we had to learn in high school. so I had to completely learn a whole new writing style, um, and all of that. So that was kind of mind blowing, and it took a little while, but I eventually got there. But when I was there for a little while, I decided that I really wanted to try and do what I loved in high school, which was designing. I really loved designing the paper. Um, I was a very shy person before I started working for the paper, and it was really hard for me to just go up to a stranger and start this random conversation. But I eventually got to where I could, and I will always thank the paper for that, because it really has helped with my skills in communicating with others, especially others that, you know, I would have never otherwise spoken with before, or people that, you know, just we have such differences. I figured out if I could just find that one little common ground with them, then that really got the conversation flowing really well. It's difficult because you have to talk to people sometimes at the worst points of their life, or make them remember the worst points of their life, depending on what your story is. So after I worked at the general assignment feature reporter position for a while, I eventually went to county reporter roughly a year after I got there. So I was promoted. And so then I had a little bit more of a hard news beat, which is things that I would consider hard news stuff that is really detrimental to where you're living. So we're talking about like council meetings and talking about municipality budgets and things like that. Things that really affect the people in which governmental body that you are covering, I guess, is the easiest way to explain that. And it was when I got there that I really started to realize how much people look at journalists in a different light. And one thing that I really grew to hate was if I would come into a meeting of, you know, let's say if it was a council meeting of some sort, I would hate going in there, because then they knew who I was. And then they would say, "Oh, you better be quiet, the newspaper's here." And I just really grew to hate that feeling of, oh, they're just looking at me like I'm just hungry for a story. And that's not at all how I am. I think a lot of people look at journalists like they're bloodthirsty, and that they will do anything to get a scandal or twist a story as much as they can to sensationalize it. And yes, there are people out there like that. There are journalists out there like that. But not all of us are like that, honestly. So I'm running up on time, so I guess I'm going to have to split this, but in the next video I'll continue to talk about my newspaper journey. So stick around.